Try it right now. Run your fingers along the side of your rib cage. Touch the sole of your own foot. Drag your fingernail lightly across your own palm. Nothing, or almost nothing. A faint sensation perhaps, but not the uncontrollable physical response that happens when someone else does the exact same thing to the exact same spot on your body. The touch is identical. The location is identical. The pressure, the speed, the sensation reaching your skin, all of it physically the same. And yet one produces laughter and the other produces nothing. This is one of the most overlooked mysteries in all of neuroscience. Not because it is subtle or difficult to observe, everyone has experienced it and most people have noticed the asymmetry, but because the explanation for it points directly at one of the most fundamental and least understood features of how the brain constructs your experience of reality. Your brain knows what you are about to do before you do it. Not in the mystical sense, in the very literal, mechanistic, neuroscientific sense. Every time you initiate a voluntary movement, every time you reach for something, stand up, turn your head, move your hand, a copy of the motor command that initiates that movement is simultaneously sent to a second system in the brain. This copy is called an efference copy, or a corollary discharge, and its function is to predict the sensory consequences of the movement before they arrive. When you move your hand toward your own rib cage, the motor system sends the movement command, and simultaneously sends a copy of that command to the sensory prediction system. The sensory prediction system uses that copy to generate a prediction of what the resulting touch sensation will feel like, where it will land, how intense it will be, what quality of sensation to expect. When the touch arrives, the brain compares the actual sensation to the predicted sensation. If they match, if the touch is exactly what the prediction said it would be, the brain dampens the sensory signal. It reduces the perceived intensity of the sensation because the sensation contains no new information. It was already predicted. It was already known. The tickling sensation that another person produces is not dampened in this way because the brain has no efference copy from movements it did not initiate. When someone else touches you, the sensory signal arrives without a matching prediction. The brain receives it as genuine new information, unexpected, unforetold, not accounted for in its model of what was about to happen, and it responds accordingly, with full sensory intensity, with the startle component that makes tickling so difficult to resist, with laughter. The self-produced touch is predicted. The other produced touch is not, and the difference between a predicted sensation and an unpredicted one is the difference between feeling nothing and being unable to stop laughing. This was confirmed experimentally in a particularly elegant way by researchers at University College London in the late 1990s. Sarah Jane Blakemore and her colleagues built a robotic tickling device, a machine that could deliver a tickling touch to a participant's palm. The machine was controlled by the participant themselves. In one condition, the participant moved the joystick and the robot immediately tickled their palm, self-produced in the sense that their own movement caused it, but delivered externally and with a direct mapping between their action and the sensation. In a second condition, the researchers introduced a time delay. The participant moved the joystick, but the tickle arrived half a second later. In a third condition, the researchers introduced a change in the movement mapping. The participant moved the joystick one direction, but the tickle arrived from a different angle than their movement predicted. The results were precise and revealing. The direct, immediate, accurately mapped robot tickle produced almost no tickle sensation, because the efference copy generated a perfect prediction and the dampening occurred as normal. The delayed tickle produced a stronger tickle sensation, because the delay created a mismatch between the prediction and the sensation's arrival time. The spatially displaced tickle produced an even stronger sensation because the spatial mismatch between prediction and actual touch was larger, and the sensation scaled with the degree of mismatch. The larger the gap between what the brain predicted and what it received, the more the sensation registered as genuinely new, and the more the tickle response activated. This is a remarkable finding, not because it explains tickling, though it does, but because of what it reveals about the general architecture of perception. The brain is not passively receiving sensory information from the world and displaying it. It is continuously generating predictions about what sensations to expect, comparing incoming data to those predictions, and passing on to consciousness only the difference between prediction and reality. The things you feel most intensely are the things your brain did not see coming. The things your brain predicted accurately are dampened, sometimes to the point of complete suppression. You live, in a very real sense, inside your brain's predictions. The world that reaches your conscious experience is not the world as it is. It is the deviation of the world from what your brain expected it to be. This predictive processing framework, now one of the most influential theories in all of cognitive neuroscience, developed most extensively by Karl Friston at University College London, extends far beyond tickling. It applies to every sensory modality. The reason you stop hearing the hum of the refrigerator after a few minutes is not that the sound has faded. It is that the brain has predicted it and is suppressing the sensation. The reason you stop feeling the weight of your clothes after you have been wearing them for a few hours is the same. The reason a new pair of shoes is uncomfortable, not because they hurt in the traditional sense, but because every contact of shoe against foot is arriving as a slight sensory surprise, not matching the established prediction. While worn shoes have been predicted so thoroughly, they effectively disappear. The sensitivity to sensation that is new, unexpected, and not self-produced is a feature, not a bug. It is the brain allocating sensory processing resources to the information most likely to be genuinely important, the information that was not already known, the information that was not already predicted, the information that might require a response. There is a connection between the tickling research and schizophrenia that researchers have found particularly illuminating. Some patients with schizophrenia can tickle themselves, not with full effectiveness, but with more effectiveness than healthy controls. The proposed explanation is that schizophrenia may involve a disruption to the efference copy system, a failure of the mechanism that sends predictions of self-generated movements to the sensory system. If the brain cannot accurately track its own movements as self-generated, then it cannot generate accurate predictions of the sensory consequences of those movements. The self-produced touch arrives without a matching prediction. It is processed as externally produced, and it tickles. The same disruption may contribute to other symptoms of schizophrenia, specifically the experience of hearing voices, which in this framework may represent a failure to correctly identify self-generated thoughts as self-generated. If the inner voice of your own thinking is not tagged as self-produced, if it arrives without the efference copy marking that says, "This is your own output," then it may be experienced as coming from outside, from someone else, from a source external to the self. The inability to tickle yourself is a small thing, a quirk of human experience so familiar that most people have never thought to ask why it is the case. But the mechanism that produces it is not small. It is the same mechanism that constructs your experience of the difference between self and other, between what you did and what happened to you, between your own thoughts and an external voice. The boundary between self and world that you navigate every moment of every day, the sense of your own body as yours, the sense of your own thoughts as yours, the sense of your own actions as initiated by you, is maintained by a prediction system that runs continuously and mostly invisibly beneath conscious awareness. When it works correctly, you cannot tickle yourself. When it fails, the world becomes strange in ways that are very difficult to live inside. You will not be able to tickle yourself when you try again later. The system will work exactly as it's supposed to. The prediction will be generated. The sensation will be suppressed. Your brain will already know what is coming. It always does. That is what makes you, you. And what makes someone else's touch something your brain cannot predict, cannot suppress, and cannot stop responding to.